Welcome to the Hotel Moment Podcast, presented by Revinate, the podcast where we talk to leaders in the hospitality industry. If you're looking for trends, perspectives, and stories from leaders in travel and hospitality, you're in the right place.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hotel Moment Podcast. My name is Karen Stevens, and I am the Chief Revenue Officer of Revinate. This week on the podcast, we're replaying some of our favorite answers to one of my favorite questions, which is, who are the women at work you are most inspired by? Enjoy. Who are the women at work or in the industry that you have been most inspired by?
Oh, there are many women that have inspired me, but I'll tell you. So probably one of the most influential was Michelle Peluso. So Michelle was the CEO at Travelocity. Young, vibrant, energetic, brilliant, smart, relatable. Like she's the first one that just like really walked the halls and sat down and wanted to understand your perspective on things. And she just connected with employees like I've never seen before. And so I always hold her in high esteem and try and go, oh, what would Michelle do? And try and channel Michelle whenever I'm trying to make tough decisions.
So, who are the women at work you have been most inspired by? So, you already mentioned Lucy.
Yeah, Lucy inspired me in a very simple way. I was 14 years old. I didn't drive yet. My dad would come to pick me up from my 3 shifts a week as a dishwasher, and there wasn't one time that Lucy would not offer him something to eat, a drink at the bar. He didn't drink, so he would just patiently wait for me. But her warm nature just set a tone in me so early on. And when she promoted me from dishwasher to busboy, it was only about 2 months in, but it was the most beautiful promotion. She pulled me aside. She told me how I love to work with people, how I didn't stop. I never forgot that lady. And there have been many female role models I've had. Estella Bodie, may she rest in peace, at the Convention and Visitors Bureau. A lady named Jo Kling that I still happen to talk to today, that I worked with when I was 22 or 23, who ran a cruise meetings company. So most of and my current boss is amazing. She just stepped down as department chair, but all of my best bosses have been women. So I proudly say that all the time at home too. And my mom, and
Yeah, that's great.
The best bosses have always been women, boss or not.
Are there any women at work that you've been very inspired by? So we always like to call out some females in the industry. Can you think of anybody in your time that really struck you?
This one is not going to be a problem at all. Actually, my wife, and this might sound biased, right? but actually, my wife and myself, we had pretty much joined almost our entire career in hospitality tech. And she also works today for Oracle in a different role. She has same professional experience, you could say. We have the same seniority level, if you want, more or less the same roles, but in different areas. And I'm very proud that she managed to do all this with also all what it brings to be a mother, a full-time mother. And so definitely I'm picking up her.
All right. And what's your wife's name?
It's Layla.
Layla. There you go. We're going to give Layla a shout out. Who are the women at work you've been most inspired by?
We might need a minute on this one because I have a few. It starts on the home front. So obviously my wife and what she does every day, I got to give a credit to that. But she's been in the business too. She actually switched from a catering position in weddings to HR. A great transition there was meant for her. But also my mother, that job I mentioned when I started, my mother's been in the business my whole life in hotels and in hotel management. So I kind of took from her and saw hospitality through her, and what I'll remember about that is like the times I'd go to like work with her or I'd stop by, like she always reminds me, and she was always that person that, and this is where we say that some technology could push us out of this frame, but she was always like the grab the coffee pot in the morning, to go refill a guest coffee and talk to a guest, right? Like, and she's still in the business to this day. I still see that when I see her, I go back to her hotel and bring my kids there, and like her interaction with guests is just none other. And obviously the root of the business that we're in. So I think I learned a lot of that people side of the business. And I even sell to my team. I mean, people see revenue people as, spreadsheet people, et cetera. But there's an internal relationship building to this job that's none other. And I think, 50% of the job for some of my team between communication to general managers and sales team. So I think she imparted a lot of that on me, but also just her hard work and grind towards what is a tough business. And then I just can't leave without saying, there's a group of strong females on my own team, 5 of my 9 revenue team members. I mean, they're great. I love working with them every day. And we just got back from Denver in July for a company general manager summit, and I got to spend a lot of time. Our 2021 GM of the year was a female who runs our property up in Hamilton, New York, the Colgate Inn. She's done an amazing job there of transitioning an older inn to really being the spotlight of that town. So I'd say, the answer is I'm surrounded by amazing females from my personal life growing up to even now. I mean, it's really great.
That's great. So let's give that GM a shout out. GM of the year. So what's her name and what's her property?
Kendra Young. Yeah, Kendra Young. She's at the Colgate Inn in Hamilton, New York, and actually transitioning to where we're going to have 2 properties in that same area run by her. So there'll be another one in the town as well.
Very cool. Well, congratulations. That is awesome. Who are the women at work you've been most inspired by?
It's funny. My first general manager was a woman back in, again, this is probably in 84, 85, I guess, after I left Atlantic City. I haven't spoken to her in a long time. Her name was Peggy Barton. There was a woman who I partnered with, a woman named Ann Williams. I've worked for Betty Prakashani, the Prakashani group. I've had all sorts of women that I've worked with. I mean, I currently at First Hospitality, my SVP of commercial strategies is a woman named Jenna Fishel. So it's constantly been opportunities. I think that's one of the beauties about our industry is some of the cultural diversity that
Yes.
we have, and I've always seen at all levels.
Who are the women at work you've been most inspired by? So you talked about a woman just a moment ago, but is there anyone else you can think of in your career that has been very inspirational for you?
I'd say there's 2 that jump immediately to mind. One of them worked for me for 15 years, Gina Tallarico. She's the vice president of asset management now at Hyatt. But when I hired her the first time, she was my number 2 running finance for North America. And what I loved about her was the way she balanced her strengths and my weaknesses of, her precision for being a great accountant, her ability to maintain relationships, her understanding of everything that was going on was a great counter to what I was good at. And I think surrounding yourselves with somebody who can really play to your weaknesses was great. And, we're still good friends today. And having her around was fantastic. And I think second was Joan Bottarini. Joan's the CFO at Hyatt. And she started in the company the same time I did. And so our careers kind of grew together. And just watching her, maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago, she left her job in the Americas to go take a job in Asia. And in a male-dominated industry, in a male-dominated company at the time, and then in a male-dominated atmosphere like we have in Hong Kong, for her to be able to put herself out there, and then that set her up to come back and be the CFO at Hyatt. And, it was a great inspiration for me, really, as I thought about leaving Hyatt of, here's somebody who took a chance and put themselves out there to try a new experience. And I thought it was fantastic. And she's just a fantastic person as well. So that makes it even better.
Who are the women at work that you have been inspired by? Does anybody come to mind?
Yeah, so when I worked at Hilton, there was a lady who became my boss. I was a very young sales director at a very large hotel, the largest hotel in the region. And this regional sales director, I remember her coming in for a review. And it was just 2008 when all of the markets had crashed last time round. And I still remember that day when I was in that room and I was being grilled up and I had no answers because I'd just been promoted into that role. And I was like, I will never be in a room where I'm not prepared. And I loved my relationship with her after that because she did see that I wanted to learn and she really helped me and drove my career further. And she supported me throughout my next promotions after that. I like people that challenge me constantly, who ask questions that I don't have answers to, because I don't want to be in that room. So it makes me work harder to make sure that I have all the answers beforehand.
Who are the women at work you have been most inspired by?
My first two bosses, and it really had nothing to do with gender, but more about their, dedication and talent for the job. One was an amazing strategist and sat on the executive committee of the company that I was working for, and recall that at an early age, again in my 20s, she brought me to every board meeting as a kid straight out of college. I thought that was really cool to have that faith in me, and I'll never forget it. And the other was a leading marketeer. And, I've spent my career modeling the things that they did, both in strategy and marketing. So I have a lot of respect for both of my first two bosses who were female.
Both women. And thanks for saying their skill set had nothing to do with them being women, but it's wonderful that, they were inspirational as leaders. And that's
Absolutely.
right. That's great. Who are the women at work you've been inspired by? So do any women come to mind that you've worked with over the past few years, either, directly or collaboratively?
Yes. Three come to mind. We have an advisor named Glenn Appel, who's just wonderful woman in the industry who really ties together a lot of skill sets that I think are hard to find in anyone. She understands design and service. She understands finance and kind of development. So she's an advisor to our company and she inspires me often. But I think the one who probably wins the most is our general manager, Christina, our Drift Mexico property. I actually met her when we were having trouble during construction. I wasn't happy with our construction project manager, so I fired him. And then someone introduced me to her, and she's this like petite, very well dressed woman. In the construction world in Mexico, there's a lot of machismo and all that kind of stuff. And she shows up to site in like Prada like slippers and like whip those guys into shape. And
nice.
So much so that I was like, hey, do you want to be our general manager afterwards? And she did. And she's been with us for 2 years now. And she's awesome. She's really tough.
Oh, that's great. I love that story. Fantastic. All right. We have one more for you. Who are the women at work you've been most inspired by?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I mean, we have some incredible talent in our organization. When I think just about my team that I work with most directly, a couple of names popped in my head with that question. So one, Patricia Davis is my senior vice president of marketing and communications. She leads an incredible team. I would call our marketing department our next vertical, if you will. We've basically, under her leadership, grown to an in-house agency. I mean, there's nothing that Davidson can't do for you in the area of marketing based on the team that she's put together. One of the things I like about Patricia as well is her background is in luxury and resorts and the like. But she came up as a revenue manager initially. And so what that's helped bring to the table is I'm a big believer that as our industry has evolved, the importance of your brand and your ability to market to your end user and how we reach the customer through your digital effort is so critical. It's like the three legs of the stool, right? We've historically thought of group sales and we've thought of revenue management, right, which has evolved and the pulling of the levers, and we have incredible talent in our organization in those arenas. But we've now grown to the level where every single one of our regions has a dedicated integrated marketing manager as part of that triumvirate, if you will. And a lot of that is just the spirit and the doggedness and passion that Patricia brings to the table about why marketing is so critical to our success. So she comes to mind. I have an amazing talent. I'm kind of pointing because her office is over there. That's right. She's right over there. Rachel Higbee. She's a Yale graduate, and she leads our strategic operations team. She's also a participant on our steering committee. So it's in addition to our C-suite, we have 2 additional steering team members that participate with us regularly in setting the direction for Davidson. That's how highly Rachel is thought of, and she's on our steering team. Our strategic operations department is an area that many of our competitors don't offer. Think of it as business intelligence, right? So kind of looks at the finance side of the business and benchmarking and how we elevate and identify opportunity. She leads our brand relationships with all the different brands that we operate for, which are vast. Our forecasting and our budgeting process lives within that arena. And for me, it's a great pairing because my background, as I mentioned to you, is in finance prior to operations. And so this is like it's my opportunity to create and identify with her assistance, new and innovative ways to evaluate the business and drive ourselves forward. So she's an amazing talent, brilliant, and a great leader. Her team is tremendous and growing. So those are two folks. I mean, I would also say on the steering team, Crystal Beasley was elevated by Tom when he took the reins as our new CEO. John Belden stepped into his chairman role, and Tom was elevated from as president to president and CEO. I think the very first move he made was to elevate Crystal, and Crystal is first and foremost was our legal counsel, right, and a tremendous talent, and puts out volume like you wouldn't imagine. I mean, she is just a savant, very, very smart. And the thing that Tom did was elevated her to the C-suite and made her the chief administrative officer. And she now has a direct hand in our human resources function. And so that was a way to elevate her responsibility, grow her role in the company. And it's just a unique combination, right? You don't always see that type of creativity in terms of how we've deployed, but she is a foundational success for us and a difference maker and a great support to our owners.
Excellent.
That's just three. I could keep going.
That's a power trio. So we got Patricia, right, Rachel, and Crystal. Shout out. Great job.
Shout out.
And then the last question, who are the women at work you have been most inspired by?
Very good question. And I really love that you're trying to show female persons in our industry really make a difference. And for me, I didn't have to think long about this, is Isabella Owen, which is or was my director of sales and marketing during my time at Jumeirah. And I learned so much from her in terms of marketing, branding, but also how to hustle. When I thought I'm getting up so early today, nobody else is in the office, I'll be the first one. She was already sitting there. And since Jumeirah was basically my first hotel job, I really had a lot of questions. And I can imagine they were not always the smartest. And she always took the time to explain me everything. And it really made a difference. And in terms of thinking, in terms of how to approach marketing, and taking a lot of that from that experience. And there's so many other women I've worked with. It's hard to mention them all. I do want to mention also Anna Heuer. She's the CEO, if you will, from the HSMA Association in Germany. She's doing such a great job in bringing together the industry. She's always super positive and super smart brain. I learned also a lot from her how to counter hard experiences or not so friendly people in a very positive way. Exactly.
Diplomacy. That's right. That's right. Yeah. Wow.
Thank you for listening to the Hotel Moment podcast. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're watching on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe for more content. For more information, head to hotelmomentpodcast.com. The Hotel Moment podcast is presented by Revinate and produced by Make More Media.